we got some footage of you right before your hip replacement.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to throw it up and have everybody kind of see this video 2 weeks prior to a hip replacement. Fucking Dave is squatting, which I guess at this point in my life, I should not be surprised by. But there are so many little details in this video that are going to be so important to see. First off, you're wrapped.
Well, yeah, the wrap. That was before my left hip replacement.
Yep.
And there's a cane too.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, so pause that for a minute. So what was going on at the time is the pain was so bad because with the first hip replacements, because people ask me about this all the time. Mm-hmm. How do you know when? You'll know when. Especially with the first. The second one, it's different. I can talk about that after I'm done with this. But the first one, you'll know when, because you can't sleep. The pain never goes away. It doesn't matter what pain pills you take. It doesn't matter what you do. It's like a toothache, you know. And when a toothache is
nagging.
Hitting, and then you're aware of it.
Yep. Right.
When you're aware of it, it's terrible. But every now and again, you're not aware of it. It's still there. But it's there. Mm-hmm. So with the way the hip was, is it would wake me up, and then it was that nagging. And for the longest time, I thought it was my back and all these other things where if I had the time, I'd have him look up. There's a video of me squatting 900 pounds when I was still competing, and I was shaking like crazy. Mm-hmm. Even all the way back then, I always thought it was my back. It was my bracing. It wasn't ability to stabilize the weight, or it was because I was using bands too much and it was grounding me. So when I went without the bands, it took the grounding away.
Right.
Looking back now in hindsight, with as bad as my hips were, that's what it was. It was my hips, and it wasn't able to stabilize. Then when I look at that video now and see it, it's like, holy shit. And you're going to see the same thing here with what happened, because it used to be before this, every time I got up to anything that was over 700 at the top, bar weight or bar weight plus band, bar weight plus chain, didn't matter, you know, that shaking started. And I'm like, what the hell? You know, why can't I brace this? What the hell? And I just assumed my back was so fucked up that that's just what it was. And until I was going through this process here and had all the MRIs done, and my back was no issues. So it's like, okay, now wait a minute. And then my hip was completely, what do I want to say, compacted. It was when the bone is on bone, mm-hmm. so hard that there were fractures going up through the hip girdle. I can't think of the word that they call it, but impacted, whatever it was.
Sure.
So that's what it was. So what I wanted to do here, and I was training with John at the time, because I've tried to find this video and I could never find it on our site, and it'd drive me nuts because there's a reason why I did this. So John filmed it because this is when I was training with him. I knew this was going to be my last leg day before surgery. And I knew it wasn't going to get any better than this. It was not, if I didn't get the surgery, it wasn't getting better.
Right.
If I didn't get the surgery, I was going to be in a wheelchair. Mm-hmm. I couldn't walk without pain. So that's why I had the cane, because I couldn't walk without pain. But if I had a bar on my back, it still hurt like a motherfucker. But it didn't hurt as much as walking, but it hurt like a bitch. So what I wanted to do was find a weight that I could squat with chain, whatever it was going to be. So when I started coming back, as soon as I got to that same weight, in my mind, okay, mm-hmm. I'm better than I was before the surgery.
Right.
And that's all I cared about at this time. Actually, all I cared about is not being in pain, but I'm a meathead. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, how do I know this helped? Well, I knew it wasn't going to get any better. So I needed to find, this is my stupid meathead story, right? So it makes sense, right?
No, but it's you say stupid, but I'm hearing it, I'm like, fuck, that's kind of smart.
No, it's not. But anyhow, so this is that set, right?
Yeah, right.
So that's where the cane is. John's filming it, and then you'll see kind of what happens. It's kind of funny. I had to hit ammonia. It's only like 3:15. Oh, so it's the box. They didn't have the box in there. I wanted to make sure the box was in there, because if my hip popped out, I wanted something to catch me. Yes. Yeah. And obviously it's a high box because of the hip. And I like high boxes, so I'll just put that out there. Listen to the plates. This is great because the plates shake and the chains.
Yeah. Holy shit.
And I mean, that hurt like a bitch. And right about here is when my brain clicks. And it's like, fuck it. I'm doing whatever it takes. And I wanted to make sure I did as many as I could. So I knew it was actually, when I went to do it again, I would know that it was actually better. Mm-hmm. Hey, there you go. Hey. Look at that. She's so much deeper than me, too. Play that again.
Oh, hang on. What's that?
I don't know if you can do it. It's an ad. Oh, no, shit. That's about. No, that's
your high, that's a high box.
She's still lower than me. Yeah, so that's what I did with that, right? So then 2 weeks later, I had the surgery.
Now, one of the things I need to point out, and Jacob, I don't know if you can pull this up after this ad plays or whatever. My favorite part of this video is your spotter turning around at the camera.
Go back to the video.
Go back to the video, Jacob.
The same one, yeah.
And you see your spotter turn around and make his face like, what the fuck is happening right now?
Oh, Jenica? Yeah.
She truly had, and that's my favorite part of the whole video, because I know for a fact you went over there and you were like, in your head, you're like, I'm doing as many as you can, but nobody the fuck around you has any idea what you're doing.
No, they don't know how I'm going to do it. I mean, the only person that actually was probably an enabler here probably was John.
Yeah, because he's filming it.
Yeah, well, I didn't know. That was the other thing, right? I didn't know he was filming this. I just wanted to know for myself.
Right.
And so it's
it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But yeah, the closest spotter, you'll see her turn around and smile at the camera like this uncomfortable, like, I don't know what the fuck's gonna happen next. Mm-hmm. And right there, there you go. It's like, do I do anything? Do I stop? Do I just fucking get him off of this thing? Yeah, no, that's a different sort of mentality of, okay, well, this thing's fucking broken. What can I do? Right?
Here's the thing. Here's the other part of it, my meathead part of it. It's not going to get worse, right? I was in so much pain. Let's say the worst thing happened. Mm-hmm. Say it broke, right? It just broke. Fine, no problem. I get the surgery then.
Right.
So I don't have to wait 2 more weeks.
You probably skipped a step in the surgery process. They don't need to break anything. You just got to pull it out.
Yeah. So to me, this entire situation was all positive.
Yeah.
There was no negative here. Because even the worst case was a better case than what I was currently looking at,
sure,
which was the 2 weeks. Now, what I did here if you go to 7 weeks post, this is 7 weeks. Go ahead and pause it real quick. This is 7 weeks post surgery, and it's the same weight, the same chain. Everything's the same. It's just I had to use the rack because I was training by myself.
I see the beginning of Washed Up Meathead Tips right here. I see you setting shit up so you can grab things and everything's kind of...
So that's there for that reason.
Yeah.
And I had my appointment, my 8-week follow-up appointment was the next week. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to be able to get this, so when I went in to speak to the surgeon, I could say, hey, man, everything's going well.
Yep.
It's tracking where it needs to go. It's fine. So this is the same weight 7 weeks later. So go ahead and play this. And you'll notice the biggest thing with this is you're not going to hear the same grunting. Well, mainly because it didn't hurt. I mean, it was post-surgery hurt, but it wasn't like anywhere near the same.
Right. Then you walked it out.
Yeah, well, I didn't have a choice.
Shaking's gone.
Yeah, so the shaking's gone. I mean, I still don't have my stance out to the same place in this video. So the box height's the same, but it looks like it might be like an inch or two higher. I'm not too sure, but to me, this was my first milestone with the recovery. Right. The first milestone's just walking, I suppose, but this was the first milestone. But the funny thing with this is I'm so freaking proud of this, man. This is why I filmed this one, because I wanted to go into the surgeon and say, look, right? It's like, high five, dude, you did a good job, right? I go in and we're meeting. I'm like, things are good. He's doing the range of motion. Things are good. X-ray, everything was good. I'm like, well, hey, look at this. And the dude looks at this, right? And after 2 reps, he says, is this squatting? Which kind of made me laugh a little bit because it's a yoke bar, it's high box. I said, yes. And he handed me back. And I pushed it back to him. Because dude, there's 2 reps. I did 10. There might even be more than, I don't know. Like, you missed, like, the fuck? You missed 80% of this. And I'm like, what the fuck? This is a cool ass thing.
Yeah.
And he said, what are you doing? I said, I'm doing my rehab. I'm building this back up. I said, this is what I wanted. This is what I did 2 weeks before. And this is where it is now. Good job, man. We're on the right track. And he says, Dave, listen, I got to explain something to you. And I should have known better. He says, when you do a hip replacement, a lot of these parts, they're porous, so it goes up into the hip joint, and then into the femur, and then the bone has to grow, into those things to kind of absorb, to make it an easier way to do that. And they're anchored a little bit, and the way he explained it to me, and this is and it's not exactly this way, but this is what he told me. He said, have you ever seen those little tiny screws, that are for like electronics?
Yeah.
He said, yeah. I said, would you ever try to hang a picture on the wall with that?
Oh, no.
And I'm like, no. He says, how much does that picture on the wall weigh compared to that screw? And I'm sitting there and he says, I bet it's not over 300 pounds. And then I was like, that kind of hit me though. I mean, he did this in the right way. He was a great surgeon, tons of respect for him, because that made me realize, no, wait a minute. This is more than tendon and muscle. We're dealing with bone now. And anybody that knows anything about recovery, injuries, bone is the slowest to heal. Muscle's the fastest, tendons or ligaments, muscles, tendons, ligaments, bone. So then it was a conversation, okay, how long does it take? It's like 4 to 6 months is pretty much where we can say that this is good. And so I left, and here's the funny part of my mentality. I left and I told myself when I left, don't use any more weight than what that was. Because I figured if it didn't break with that, I just can't use more.
Right.
So I did. I kept it there and then started doing all the other stuff. Don't get me wrong, I was doing all the other stuff with that. This was not the right thing to do. Right. This is not what I did with my other one, and it's not what I've had multiple friends do, but I do have them all high squat. I do have them do that as soon as they possibly can.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because when someone thinks hip surgery, they think you have to baby it for a long time. So you're actually, you may have pushed the envelope a little bit far, but right after a hip replacement, they have you walking.
Well, here's the thing. This is why part of the reason why I love the squat. That's why it's a squatter logo. It's part of the brand of the company. Any surgery you have, anytime you're in a hospital, no matter what it is, one of the first things they want you to do is to learn how to do a sit to stand. They get you to the end of the bed, stand up, sit to stand. To me, it's box squat, right? So, and walk, right? Because until you can start walking, you're not going to start pooping. You have to walk for the digestion. So now you have a surgery, hip, whatever it is, heart, hip, and it doesn't matter, right? They pump you full of pain pills, which constipate you. And then you're not moving, which constipates you. So the sit to stand. So that has to be, in my mind, that's always got to be part of any recovery process of any injury as soon as it is. So if you got to start high and work down, that's fine. If you got to start with a walker, then you use the walker. Then you just progress it from there. And that's my spiel on that.
So actually, we have one more video that I kind of want to share with everybody to showcase whatever it is the hell that you're doing in this video. So Jacob, you want to pop that up for me? Here we go. So this is kind of candid camera footage of Dave post-training session. And I want to get your perspective on what the hell is going on.
That's secret shit right there. What this is during the week I train with Ted, you know that. These people in the main, I know that. So it's just one other guy that I work out with. After he leaves, I do a bunch of other stuff. So you can call it prehab, you can call it rehab, you can call it conditioning, you can call it whatever you want.
Yeah.
It's just a series of different things that I do for different reasons. I don't do anything unless it has a reason. So this is just a series of 3 exercises I've been putting together because my back's been feeling a little weird, and I think it's because, you know, the hips might be getting tight, and there's other factors associated with that. So I like to use the tsunami bar. Don't worry about the bar. I'm not trying to make it super oscillate here. What I'm really trying to do here is just get as deep as I can possibly go. So, and that is right now, that is my max depth. So,
but what you notice here is as you watch this video, you get progressively deeper.
Yes, and that's the part. That's the point. And there's only like 100 pounds on the bar, so it's not a lot of weight. The weight's really irrelevant. The weight's just to help me get a little lower. But the problem, I won't go heavier because I should be able to get lower than that with 100 pounds.
Sure.
So if I want heavier, then I'm defeating the purpose of why I'm doing this. I should be able to squat lower than that right there with no weight. So the weights just to kind of help push it down. And there's a conditioning aspect that you're going to see here in a minute. And I do like the oscillation because as it's oscillating, as it's moving, I have a lot of involuntary contraction going on in the core. So the side steps are just for the hips, but see, they're already kind of pre-fatigued.
But you're getting to the point where you're working your hips in obviously different planes of motion, right? And when you're trying to build that stability in somebody, you need to make sure that they can resist force throughout those different ranges. And as a powerlifter, as somebody who has been in the same plane of movement for the majority of their career, this is massively important. And I think it's something that a lot of people don't realize is you need to move in different planes, side to side, front to back. You need to rotate. You need to incorporate these things into your training to make sure that you are not essentially reducing the amount of stability that you have in your body.
Yes.
Because you build up a tendency to just have these planes of motion that you live in.
Yes.
And that's one of the biggest reasons, and to bring it back to off-season athletes, is the reason that you make them move in different planes of motion because they have spent so much time moving the same way for an entire season, and you need to then, therefore, get them out of those particular motions.
And it doesn't take a lot of weight.
Right.
You know, so it's the movement, right? So I am, when I'm doing these things, I'm focused on feeling the muscles work. This is just a good morning, but you already seen I'm starting to chop them now. So the set should have stopped, right? But in my mind, I had 8 or whatever it was, but it should have stopped. And then I think I do calf raises or something stupid, which was kind of unnecessary. But actually, I think the reason I was doing, because this is my 3rd rotation through. I think the reason I was doing that is because the second time I almost didn't get it back in the rack. Right. So I'm practicing, you know, how to put it back in the rack because the jammer arms, they help get it out a lot, but they suck when you're trying to get, you know, back out. The other thing to keep in mind is I can't grab the bar. So I'm using the Spud Hatfield attachment, which we sell, but I love it for this bar as well, because what I've had some athletes do with the Tsunami bar is there is the oscillation aspect. I'm on the fence about that, right? I don't see it being a pro, con. I really don't see what it is. But there's another aspect with this too, that 1, 2, 3, 4 reps, kind of as soon as you start to see that it's getting a little bit lower, it's getting a little deeper, I'll have athletes launch the bar. So they're doing this outside and then jump, right? So that's full loaded plyometric. That's like throwing a med ball. To me, that's the most authentic dynamic work you can do. You do dynamic squats, you do dynamic benches, there's still a deceleration because you got a bar in your hand, it has to decelerate. So to build that explosive strength, to be able to let that go all the way through, has a huge application in training. You just can't throw bars around a weight room. Right. And this allows that to be able to done without trashing a barbell and all the other kind of things.
Absolutely. And another thing to kind of note about when you're training, not necessarily this way, but when you're looking to train stability, your goal should be to resist force in different positions, right? So if you notice, like with your squat, you are forcing yourself into a deeper and deeper position of knee flexion, of hip flexion, and you're controlling that oscillation, right?
Yes.
As little as it is, it's still more than would have been happening normally.
Yes.
And it's forcing you, and it's forcing your body, it's forcing your nervous system to understand that input coming in and resist that force.
That's a good pickup there, because you'll notice that between each repetition there was a pause. There was a stop, and that's intentional.
Yep.
So you have to be able to stabilize force before you can absorb force, before you can produce force. This is rehab 101, by the way.
That's it.
So this is anytime, again, going back to the hip surgery and everything else, you can't start producing force until you can stabilize it.
Absolutely.
I mean, so it's this whole thing. But what happens as you're a washed up meathead and you get older, these are things that just suck to do, right? So I do them when nobody's
Gotcha.
watching, right? But they're necessary, and they don't have to be. This is where I think a lot of people get really, really confused about this. This doesn't have to be done all the time. If I'm probably a little late when I do it, I wait until things start to get a little fired up. It's like, oh shit, I need to do this, and I'll do it until they start to dull out, then I pull it out again. If I leave it in all the time and then things start firing up, what do I got? What's my choice now?
Right.
To add more or just stop? So it needs to be put in a phasic way, but it doesn't have to be put in all the time. I put it in through phases. So in my 3-week phase right now, I'm just now starting to do another build up. So this is just the last 3 weeks before I call it getting to the starting line. So the last 3 weeks for that. So I'm doing a lot of cleanup, stuff like this, a lot of cleanup. Anything that's just a little weird, I want to work it out or see if it's a problem. Because if it's a problem, then I got to push back my starting line. But I can't ignore it because I have that starting line, which is even for non-competitive lifters. This is why I like to put in those goals or objectives. I have a problem with goals, but I put in the objectives, and I'll answer why here in a minute, because I did see people ask that. Because it forces that starting line. It's not so much about the end. Well, it is. I mean, I love that part, right? You set this big objective, then you go after it and you hit it. That's just one part of it. The bigger part of it, from a person like myself that doesn't really give a fuck about doing this for health, you have to be healthy before you start that final push.
Right, yeah.
So it forces me to do the crap I don't want to do to be able to live this thing I really want to do. So it puts those two objectives side by side, right? The reason I don't like goals, or the word goals, is, I believe Don Shula, it's where I read this, the first part. Goals are limiting, right? Say I want to squat say I want to bench 300 pounds. What if I could have done 315? I just limited myself, right? It's I get it. Like, it's just terminology. It's just a word, right? What's the difference between a goal and objective? They're probably the same thing. But at some point in time, this was told to me, and it just stuck. Like, okay, I can set this, but then I'm limiting myself. Or what if it can be more than that? Then I don't want it to be more than that. Most people don't achieve their goals. 80% of the people never achieve their goals. So fuck, I don't want to have a goal. Give me an objective.
Right.
An objective is like a mission, right? Here's the mission. The mission it's going to pivot. A goal will pivot too. It's just how my brain works. So every time I say the word goal.
Well, goal sounds static.
Well, it is. It is. Right? And when I say that in the back of my mind, and my mind says, you're fake, you're cheating yourself, you're selling yourself short, you can be better than this. So I got to always recorrect on that. It's just a personal thing. It's not, Dave hates goals. I don't hate goals. Whatever it takes for you to do, it's just, that's me self-correcting myself.
Yep.
That was a weird sentence.